All right, we'll call this Police and Fire Committee meeting to order at 6:33. All members are present. Last week we heard a proposal from Athens County 911 concerning dispatch. Tonight we're going to hear from Hocking College. President Betty Young is here. Would you like to start with your proposal?
I would. Do you mind if I have a seat up front so that the
You go right
people
ahead.
at
Thank
home
you.
are able to see? And I'll just move Bob's and move this one. So again, the people at home know who's here.
No, thank you much for
I didn't think that.
it.
Okay. So I think everybody in the room knows me. I'm Betty Young. I serve the students at Hocking College as the president. And I've been here, it'll be 9 years in October. I live here in the community. I don't live in the city limits proper. I live a mile off the city limits. But I have a couple properties that I do own here in town. So this is as much an issue for me as a citizen of the community as it is for me as president of Hocking College to present this tonight. First of all, I want to tell you how proud I am that Hocking was able to make sure that the city remained a city in our last census. So in our last census, there were 4,705 people counted until Hocking was able to count our dorms and our students who live here in town, which took us to 5,373 people. So we continue to be a city, and I think that's really important for us as citizens to be able to know that we can qualify for certain things as a city that as a village we may not be able to qualify for. So, you know, the college is a huge resource to the city and to the community, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to share those resources. So I had the opportunity to be on the morning radio show recently, and I went through a whole list of all of the things that we do here in the city that we provide services to our community. So for example, we have a Silver Sneakers program in our student center for our people who live in the community. They're able to come and use the center, the pool, and so forth through the Silver Sneakers program. We have a business that we operate on the town square. Doug was mentioning earlier how important the tourism business is to town. And Rhapsody has been very successful in attracting tourists into Nelsonville through Open Table. So they come to the region and they're able to survey restaurants in the area. They find out about Rhapsody and they come on down to Nelsonville to be able to come to Rhapsody. And we see that on our comment cards. So I'd really like to not only talk about today's contract, but ultimately, not in today's meeting, talk about other ways in which we here in Nelsonville could partner Hocking College and the city. We have a police and fire program at the college. So most of the police officers that work in this region actually went through the academy at Hocking College, and many with the associate degree program in criminal justice. Most of the firefighters in the region have gone through their fire training program at Hocking College. So I think there's a lot more connection to the community that a lot of people might not really think about on a day-to-day basis, but that's probably worth thinking about in terms of how we work together and what all we could be doing together. All right. So I know the 911 folks were here on Friday and were very passionate and emotional in their discussion, and I understand that. There are jobs on the line over at 911, including grant-funded positions. And so we understand that. It's a very, it can invoke a lot of emotion in people when they talk about public safety. And so we respect that they have that opportunity to do that. So I want to go through today the things that we offer through our program with the city. So we have a CAD system. So the entries are what you see on the Facebook posts. So I think probably most people see those on a regular basis. That comes out of the CAD entries. I'm going to use a lot of acronyms. I'll try to explain them as I go through what they actually stand for. I don't always know all the words, but I can tell you pretty much what the result is of having them. So as a result of having the CAD entries, you have the opportunity to post, and the city does that on Facebook, so the people in the community know what's going on. We get a lot of great feedback from that people like to see that and hear that. It's ran by our ARMS program, which is our dispatch system. So basically, ARMS is where all the information is put into the system. Our police station really does serve as a quasi substation for the Nelsonville Police Department. So, for example, just over this weekend, officers brought a suspect into our station for our holding room and our interview room. And this is a regular occurrence at the station. And I'm pleased that we're able to provide that kind of service to the city. We also serve as backup to the police department. So if you're officers, and we're all short-staffed these days, everywhere, I don't care if you're at a fast food restaurant or you're at a police station, everybody's short-staffed today. And we're happy to have been able to serve as your backup officers. If your officers are all out of town, either at BCI&I or at court, then we can be accessible and available. I think that's really important when you have short resources to be able to share those. We also have a LEAD system that we're part of. That's Law Enforcement Automatic Data System. So this is a service we provide to Nelsonville. All the warrants are sent here for the Nelsonville PD and filed in our office. We run criminal background history CCHs for Nelsonville on domestic, traffic stops. This tells you if the person, for example, has concealed carry, so that the officer knows all of this information on a call. We have recording equipment. So I understand that the chief tonight wanted to bring forth a complaint or two. I have the numbers here, by the way, of all the calls that we take for you. But we would have recordings, so if you provide us with any dates on any issues that might have arisen, we can look at those specifically in our recorded comments for the department. We'd be glad to do that. The Nelsonville phone number. When I came to town, I remember if you called the Nelsonville Police Department, you got an answering machine. So I had a personal case very early on here where we had somebody who was doing some stalking and trying to make a call on a Saturday night at about 10:30, 11 o'clock to get somebody. I got an answering machine. And, I was taught that you only call 911 when there's a true emergency. So to me, my suspicion of this person watching me was not an emergency, the way I would classify an emergency. So of course I would not call 911. I never did receive a reply to that response that I left on the answering machine. Now that's been a few years and I understand, there's plans maybe to change that, but I'm just telling you my personal experience under the old system. Which was one of the reasons that led us to offer to the city the opportunity to do dispatch. We do keep up on all the local activity. So for example, we know the hours of the pool and we get a significant number of those calls. And when we get that call, we're able to give them the answers. So it's an additional service to our members of our community here. It's not necessarily dispatch, but it is a service that we provide to the citizens. Taxpayers do have access to 911. We currently have access to 911. And if I had, my mother lives with me, if my mother were having a heart attack, I would be calling 911. I would not be calling police dispatch. Because that's, in my world of growing up, was the appropriate time to call 911. not because there's a suspicious car or somebody watching me and I'm not sure. We are staffed at Hocking 24/7, 365 days. And since my time at Hocking, which is 9 years in October, we have never had a shift that has been unfilled. The issue of training was brought up. OSP dispatch, that's the Ohio State Highway Patrol dispatch, does training for us and trains our lead dispatcher. The lead dispatcher then is a train the trainer program, and the lead dispatcher is then responsible for training the other dispatchers. We actually have a new person coming into this position that will be trained again through the Ohio State Highway Patrol dispatch. I know that the 911 folks that were here talked about the significance of turnover at 911. As a matter of fact, I remember her saying that people were leaving to go to work at Walmart because of the stress factors. We understand that. I think we see that everywhere we go. Hocking's not immune to that. Nelsonville's not immune to that. No place is immune to that today. OU operates the same system the way we do. And so this is not unique, what we do. There was also some discussion about how much work it would be to transfer leads onto the 911 system. I want you to know that if we do that, if you choose to do that, it's an equal amount of work for Hocking because we have to do the same thing. We would have to move our leads over to the 911 leads. So that amount of work is not something that just 911 would have to deal with. We had to do that when we took on dispatch 2.5 years ago. So we would have to do that again. Now I have some information that I want to give you on the number of calls because I think this was the data part that I thought was most probably important for you all to see. So I have these. Tony, would you like to have one?
Sure. Dr. Young, while you're doing that, the lead system, that's a database, correct?
Yeah.
So it's like you basically have to transfer the information over from 911 originally to your system. Like it's like a manual transfer, or is it?
Chief James is here. Chief Inskeep, excuse me, she got there. I'm going to let her explain that.
I'm going to sit back here. Thank you for having me tonight. But what I will say is, yes. First of all, let me go back and say this. I am a resident of Nelsonville and have been for the last 2 years, which you know that and everybody else knows that. So I have a vested interest in the safety of the officers here also and the community. So I'm 2 for 1. But what I will say this is that when it comes to the leads, when the leads was transferred to us, we both have a dual role to play in the transfer. So Athens had to do their part and we had to manually do our part. So it's an even amount of work. When the transfer happened, they have to do something on their end and we have to do something on our end. And the warrants have to be transferred, actually taken down there. So yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is a database. So when we have a call come in, we can run a license plate, for example, through leads. And then that comes back with the information that's pertinent to the officer.
It just kind of records that you requested that information in the system.
Yes.
So if we ever need information,
Yes.
reports, et cetera, they can request it.
Yes. That's right.
Thank you.
So the calls for service, I thought this would be interesting for you all to see. So in the 10-month period from August 22nd to May 23, you'll see that there was just under 1,400 calls that we received for Nelsonville and 776 that we took for Hocking College for our police calls. So I thought that would be an interesting number for you to see because I know that there was some discussion about 5,000 calls a year or something. That's not the experience that we've had, and I thought you should see that.
Could I interject right there, Dr. Young? These are also the calls that come in from the line that has been transferred to that line that was going to an answering machine. So I want to keep in mind that that call that was going to the answering machine 2 years ago has been transferred over to the Hocking dispatch phone. So that does include these numbers too. Miscellaneous calls, not so much 911 emergency calls.
Not necessarily dispatchable calls, then, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
We receive so many more calls than are dispatchable that, for the citizens of the community on all kinds of things. As 911 acknowledged that they had prior, but we've been able to handle those for the city.
Sian, tonight is the first time that you were made aware of all of the discomfort or disarray with your students as far as the dispatchers?
So anytime there's been a concern that's been brought, it's been brought to Chief Inskeep. Chief Inskeep has addressed any concerns immediately. And so some of what we received tonight was new to us, and some of it's undated. So we will have to have dates in order to go back, and Chief Inskeep will do this because she has done this for me on numerous occasions. When we've had somebody who called and said they were concerned about something, we go back and we review the dispatch audio. So we know exactly what the police officer said, and we know exactly what the dispatcher said.
So what were you actually, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I want to comment and piggyback off something Dr. Young said. That is absolutely correct. When we received this past handout before the meeting had aired, we received this packet with these complaints. The last complaint on the back, I received that email on June 23rd at 1:03 a.m. I did receive that in the email, through an email from Officer Theodore. Yes. I addressed the issue. I actually called it for a meeting with interim Chief Tolliver and now Sergeant Theodore. I want to get the titles correct. I called a meeting. We had a meeting about these incidents. The incident was corrected and the person was reprimanded, and I was monitoring the behavior after that, the complaint. These complaints that are here today, these new ones, I have not seen these at all. This is my first time seeing these, and some of these are not dated, but I will say this, I do listen to the recording. Everything that is has transpired via the call taker when they call in, when the radio traffic is going on, and everything is recorded. So I will definitely go back and listen to the recording, because I listened to a complaint, I listened to the video on YouTube today. I definitely went back and listened to the complaint about the officers not being notified of a tornado siren. That was a complaint. I listened to that. My dispatcher, there's one dispatcher that works, and they were actually on a traffic stop that needed a canine dog to sniff to stop. There were 3 officers out on one car that needed a canine unit. It was a busy time. He was not able to communicate the siren. There was a tornado warning, but at 8:04, that's when he got the notification of the Coolville tornado had touched, and he put that out over the air. So I do listen to these recordings. Anytime anybody would like to listen to them, you more than freely can come and listen to these recordings with me. I open my door up for that. But these complaints that are here, these new ones, again, I'll say, this is my first time seeing these. And to me, as the interim chief of police, Chief Tolliver, he has not came over to address any of these complaints with me. He has been in this position now for over 6 months, and he has not given me the opportunity to sit down. I had to call him on June 23rd about this complaint. I also, 2 weeks ago, had to come and ask for a meeting because some rude comments from his officer were said over the radio, over the air, and that was very unprofessional. And I addressed him and Sergeant Theodore about the behavior, the transmission of the conversation over the air that is recorded.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm new here,
Yes, sir.
and he's only been the interim chief for 6 months, which by charter makes him the chief now, I believe. Do you two, as the chief law enforcement officers in your respective jurisdictions, have regularly scheduled meetings where you compare notes and statistics?
Sir, I will answer that. That's a no. I have reached out to him several times to call meetings and ask. Sir, I am Mr. Doug Childs, that's your name, correct?
Yes.
Sir, I have had a meeting with him to ask and request it twice that I get all the building owners and the buildings, restaurants that are in the city of Nelsonville for my dispatchers. I have yet to fail to receive that. When we have an alarm drop, no, this is how critical this is to me.
I don't want to cast stones.
No, but I'm saying this is critical for me because we need to have these meetings. When Chief Fitch was here, we had regular meetings.
But did you have that list of all the buildings and
No.
everything at that?
I have not gotten that yet.
At that time?
Fitch was working on it. He gave me some, maybe 5 or 6 buildings, but per the request that I've asked within the 6 months, I have not received neither. But I do have about 4 or 5 buildings with the wrong information on it.
And there was an alarm, for example, at Blackbird,
Correct.
and we didn't have the information for the owner of the building. We meaning the dispatcher. Now, of course, most of us would know where that building is, but that's a good example. There's many buildings we don't know where they are.
Well, that sounds like something that should have been in place from the beginning
Yes,
of the original contract.
yes.
So to put that on us now in the last 6 months, I'm not sure that should have already been in
And that
place.
shouldn't solely fall on police either. That can fall on fire department as well, it can fall on.
Asked me to do that, so I want to say what we're doing.
When we had this meeting, when I requested this meeting with you on June 25th, you and Sergeant Deardorff was sitting in my office, and that was verbal, and then I sent an email.
I don't recall seeing it. We haven't worked on this.
All right.
I do have some more questions I'd like to circle back to, but I want to make sure that your presentation is complete before I do that.
I'm open for questions.
Okay. My concern, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. My concern is that you have 2 law enforcement agencies co-located jurisdictionally who are working together as a team, who back each other up when needed, as it should be. And I want to make sure that we are doing everything that best practices are being done compared to other communities with similar law enforcement landscape. But it's not just the law enforcement. Chief Barber, are you here? Can I ask you, what is the communication between the fire service, the police departments, and the other EMS elements within the emergency response system in this area?
You can ask Chief Barber, and I can also tell you that until now, we have had a great working relationship with the chiefs of all the departments and with the city generally, your safety service person and so forth. It is only very recently here that we have had a breakdown in that, and we're all distressed about that.
And a very simple question. Do all of our radios talk to each other?
They can. Everybody is on a MARC system. The county switched over to the MARC system, and every channel on the MARC system is designated for each agency. In the MARC system, you can also scan and be able to hear other agencies.
So if we've got an active shooter at Nelsonville York High School, and Sergeant Deardorff gets dispatched there, and we have other EMS units that need to respond to the same scene, is Chief Barber's people going to be able to understand what's happening in real time, the same as Sergeant Deardorff does?
Yes, our dispatchers will contact 911. The 911 services.
And the ambulance service as well.
Correct.
All those have to be
All those have the
synchronized
same
and
moving
synergized.
parts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that that's actually happening and that that's in place.
He's here, he can answer it because we've had several incidents over at the college and he can answer that.
I mean, I don't want to blow the meeting up, but
We're able to communicate with each other. All of our radios have the other jurisdictions channels in them, and often we scan. So since Nelson Fire Department provides EMS, we scan EMS as well because we're part of the Athens County EMS protocol.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
So,
I think it's important for the citizens of Nelsonville to know that.
so can I interject and go back to your initial question? I'll say this, I've been in law enforcement for 22 years. I'm going on 23 years. I've been a lieutenant. I've been a lieutenant for 2-3 years, and then I became the interim chief and the chief. And the experience that I've had with other chiefs, even being a police officer, with other chiefs, is the chiefs talk. When the communication is broke between the chiefs, the system breaks.
Sure.
You have to stay in contact, and you have to stay, I might not like you, but it's not about me liking you. It's about the title and the respect of the community.
Sure.
And that's what is forefront tonight,
No, I agree.
is the community.
Absolutely.
Not me, not Tolliver, not you and nobody. It's the community at hand that needs to be, that the service is what is important. And I'm a part of this community also.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's actually a requirement of Hocking College that our chief live in the district. It is a requirement that all of our senior executive staff live in the district.
Fantastic.
Greg, I've got another question. if I may.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think the biggest concern we have, at least me coming into it now, is there's some officer safety issues that need to be addressed. And it's probably premature to have closure on that or have answers on that. It seems to me like the two chiefs need to work out those complaint issues. Do your investigations,
Yes.
find out what the problems are, recommend your courses of action, and then get back to whatever the proper channel is, whether it's this committee or some other committee. Excuse me, I'm supposed to take out the trash. And that's not a metaphor. I think it's important that we resolve that first and see if this isn't something that can be addressed and repair whatever damaged relationships we do have.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important part from where I sit, is this community needs to come together.
So when we started this 2.5 years ago or so, we just figured out what it costs to run dispatch. And we said to the city, let's just split it 50-50. Well, it didn't get split 50-50. We pay a little bit more at Hocking. We're okay with that. But we did it for $75,000 for the last two years. We've been out of contract, but continuing to do dispatch, even though we don't have a contract in place. So tonight I brought both a contract and an invoice for the coming year. You can take action on it however you want and let us know. We are not going to drop the ball on the city of Nelsonville and turn the switch off tomorrow. I promise you that. This city Hocking College is a part of the city. We're a citizen of the city. I have over 700 people who live in this city as students in this city. And so we have a huge vested interest here. And we're going to keep doing the right thing no matter what. So I'll provide you all as the committee members with this.
So, Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. One of the individuals at the last meeting had mentioned something about Hocking's dispatcher leaving. So is that, did you have a full-time dispatcher?
Yes, I have a full-time dispatcher that has left,
Okay.
and also I have someone coming in her place.
Okay, that's the individual that she
Yes,
was referring to.
correct.
Okay, and then when will they be fully trained and up and?
They already work for us already, so the transition, all I have to do is do the paperwork to get them into the full-time status.
Okay, great.
Who's that gonna be?
That's Elijah.
Okay.
Wait,
So I have a question. So if we have a situation that was referred to, how many dispatchers are on duty at any one time?
one.
So if there is a situation that requires multiple agencies, that one dispatcher can handle all that at one time?
So no, what has happened in the past, if the situation is transpiring, which it has, We've had the stabbing, we've had the shooting, we've had some major incidents happen, and we have another dispatcher come in.
But how long does that take?
Well, the person who is taking the full-time position right now, he lives here in Nelsonville. So he lives right in Vic Village, he just runs over, take 5 minutes.
What if they're not available?
Then
I'm just concerned
then
about
if
the-
not available, I come. But that hasn't happened yet.
So then there's just the one full-time dispatcher, and then in the evenings, because it's 24/7, right? So
Yes, it's
then-
manned 24/7,
Right.
so I have one dispatcher and the rest are part-time.
Okay, so the part-timers then fill the
Correct.
main.
Correct.
Okay, and then the part-timers, they get the same training as the full-time?
So the full-timer goes to the training and is trained the trainer. As we had OSP come and train Aubrey, excuse me, I didn't mean to say her name, but, as we had the dispatcher come and train her, from OSP, she ended up training the rest of them how to do the job. So it's basically train the trainer.
I would like to thank you for continuing to provide the service to Nelsonville despite the fact that your contract had expired. That really shows commitment on your part to the city of Nelsonville. And I, for one, as a citizen, really appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I interject, please?
Yes,
This is going to be sort of the elephant in the room. Yes. You gentlemen will make a decision on what is going to happen here. Now, my next statement goes to Chief Tolliver. Chief Tolliver, how long have you been in the process of setting this up with 911 activists?
I discussed things with them probably 7 months ago.
Okay. And during this discussion, would it not be feasible that the president of the council and also the treasurer of our auditor be aware of this?
I'm sure I could have mentioned it to them.
Okay. So the fact that you now have those two individuals sort of, and I'm sorry to use this term, but on your side, I mean, what chance does Hocking have?
I'm not sure what involvement the auditor would have in this decision. This is a council issue, not an auditor.
No, that's not what I'm saying, sir.
Okay,
What I'm saying is, as the chief, he had the right to question and do whatever he felt was right. But also, the management of the auditor and also the president of the council, they are not dummies. They know what goes on in this town. So they were well aware of it, and that's what I'm getting at. The college does not have a prayer.
I disagree.
Okay,
correct. And
Yeah.
I
also,
absolutely disagree with that.
Okay, well,
That's not how the council works.
that's,
and this committee here does not make the decision.
you make a recommendation.
We can make a recommendation.
And up until an hour ago, I didn't know what Hocking College's, what their side of the story, if you want to pick sides, which I don't like to use that term. We're all in this together.
Yes,
And the only consideration that I'm looking at right now is capabilities. We all agree that we all need to help each other. We all need to work together. The concern is only about capability and what do we get for the dollar that we're spending? What capability do we get for that dollar? And my decision-making process involves looking at capability A, capability B, and putting the dollar amounts on each one of those and determining which is best for the city overall. That's my job, if you will, as a council.
Doug, if you will, the dispatch services are important.
Agreed.
And, I'm not gonna say we never make a mistake.
I don't
I
think
doubt
911 could say that either.
anybody
Yeah.
would want to believe that that was who they
Yeah.
were. But we run a good department. But it's more than just a good department with good dispatch. We have a long-term relationship with this city. We back officers up here. We were first on the scene when we lost an officer here. We are regularly first on the scene when there aren't enough NPD to be there. And I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to do that. We provide facilities for interview rooms because we have a pretty nice police department. We've completely remodeled to
Someday I'd like to come over.
to
and take a look.
standards.
Come tomorrow.
To standards for the accreditation of that department.
Sure.
You know, we take our leads very serious, and we train for that, and we have protocols in place to assure things run the way they're supposed to. This is not a seat of your pants operation, as it might have been portrayed the other night.
The
So
same-
I want to be really clear that we run a good, strong operation, and we've had a good, strong relationship with the city. And we want to continue that, but it's not just the dispatch contract. It's this whole package of being able to answer citizens' calls that come in. That, you know, that we're that presence, that other presence, that makes the community feel safe, frankly.
And that could be that other component that Teresa was talking about on Friday, where she come in and had discussed about how 911 works and how the excess calls would still need answered.
Yeah, I think that's the piece we need to work on.
So that would be something in reference to that secondary call. They could still have their department, that department could still go on 911 as well. They could take over that secondary dispatch in terms of all of the extra public calls, in terms of the pool hours or any other calls like that, which would allow that Hocking officer to also be on if you were to go towards the 911 route. That would put everyone all on the same, fire, EMS, sheriff's office, all of your local law enforcement, everyone.
So it would more than double your cost to do that, but yes, that's possible.
The
Miss
lady,
Young.
the lady that was killed several weeks ago, the gentleman that killed her called 911 at Athens 3 times.
Was that Athens City?
They sent their people up here.
I don't know anything about it.
Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about the.
Just understand that my concern, being a former law enforcement officer myself, is officer safety. When an officer here in Nelsonville tells me he's concerned about his safety, my spidey senses pick up, and I'm concerned about that. And I want to make sure that that's taken care of.
If I may,
Chief,
Chief Tim.
I'm an officer, like I said, I've been for a long time. My spidey senses and hair raises, if anybody has worked with me, know my number one thing is officer safety. That is something that is very important, is officer safety. If I would have known about any of these complaints that I'm receiving today, besides the one on the back page, or any concerns, and we would have had these meetings, I would have been able to address it. I would have been able to tell him the process of everything that I have done to rectify the situation, and everything that, or asked him of any suggestions that he could have inputted. Sergeant Theodore used to work at 911 dispatch. He's a train on the dispatch. He was the trainer for my area before he came over here to Nelsonville.
Right.
I asked for his help on numerous occasions, but unfortunately he was unable to help me because he was over here helping, which he has the right to. This is his department. However, but what I will say to this is Chief Tolliver and myself has a vested interest in dispatch. And when you have a vested interest in dispatch and officer safety, we need to meet at the table to see what we can do better to facilitate dispatch. It's just not on me. He has some responsibility to take too.
I don't disagree with that.
Dr. Young, is one of the comments from the other night, was discussing about multiple dispatchers at the same time. Is that something that Hocking would consider? Because it sounds like some dispatching, situations may require multiple dispatchers to be available. So it sounds like there's an instance where we had a dispatcher, but then couldn't dispatch the tornado because they were on another call.
They covered that already.
Did they?
It was due to the officers being busy, so they didn't want to interrupt them on the traffic stop with the weather, basically.
Okay, but maybe that's a bad scenario, but if there's other situations, would the college consider having multiple dispatchers on at the same shifts, or, have two on at a time, or?
So I want you to look at the number of calls for both the city and Hocking College. And you can see that it would not support staffing 2 or 3 people on a particular shift on an ongoing basis. Not only that, I would challenge you to be able to staff police departments at either place or the dispatch, including at 911, and to get enough people to work.
Yes.
Now, we're a small city. Can we guarantee absolute safety on everything? No, I don't think we can. And I'm not going to tell you that we can guarantee that. But what we have now is so much better than anything we ever had.
Well,
And do we know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I want to comment on something that she said. So the second shift is normally the high call volume,
Okay,
which
that's what I'm
runs
gonna
from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay.
That is the high call volume. Normally what I try to do, is I try to put my best dispatcher on that shift. Because I know that shift, excuse my lack of a better words, is going to rock and roll. I'm a cop, so it's going to move. And that I try to put my dispatcher that is proficient, like my full-time dispatcher, on that shift.
That was actually my question, so thank you.
Yes.
How many dispatchers do you have on staff now?
Right now, with the transition, I just interviewed 3 dispatchers today. I'm hiring 2 out of the 3. Right now, I have 3. And then my office manager, who is my administrative assistant, she can run dispatch too. So she's been running dispatch for me during the daytime.
Okay.
And then right now, Wade is on second shift.
So if it's not feasible to have 2 dispatchers at one time, what about 1 on call?
I could see that. I don't know where Dr. Young sat with that, but of course, can be on call. I mean, I don't have a problem.
Our chief is always on call.
Yeah.
And, we have enough,
Yeah.
we have enough backup here in town with the people who work for us that we've never had an incident with having to have people in. We've had power outages that we've had to, provide all kinds of additional service for people to come in and help. It's an all hands on deck. We have, well over 200 employees at Hocking College, and most of them are able to come in and help with whatever needs to be done. And we do a lot of crossover.
Can I ask a question?
Are we done as a committee at this point?
I asked been asked.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think if I'm hearing it right, we're comparing apples to oranges, to use a cliche. Because Hocking College, I believe, is just handling Nelsonville's police calls, not the whole county like 911.
Correct.
So when you're asking how many's on a shift, I don't think it would behoove them to put as many as 911 puts on a shift, who's handling sheriff, who's handling Aaron. Yeah. And another thing I'd like to ask is, before you make a decision, have you thought about looking at both? Like Doug said, I'd like to come down and see your process at Hocking College. And she said, welcome, come down tomorrow. Had you guys on the committee or city council ever gone on a road trip and looked at 911 down in the plain and went over to Hocking College and looked at the process over there. Because I think you're gonna see they're kind of opposite.
It's a very good point, Johnny, because we don't claim to be a 911 service, okay? And as a taxpayer, I can still call 911
Yeah.
anytime,
Right.
okay? Anybody in this city, without any additional cost to this city, can call 911 anytime that there is an emergency. So we don't profess to be 911.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Is the issue with continuing to use Hocking College as you have been doing a question of money? And if that is the case, have we looked at grant money or other types of income that could obviously help pay for whatever the cost would be? Say if she needed to increase and have, say, 2 dispatchers on at all times, which is what you're saying, would you be able to hire more people? Yes, she's probably able to do that, but that would change the amount of money that she's gonna be charging for this service. So my question is, as council, have we looked at any other monetary options that are out there? Because I know that law just passed for the state of Ohio, where they have like $100 and something million allotted for the 911 and this type of stuff. So have we taken a moment, if it's about the money, to see if we can find the funds in another way, through a grant, through federal funding or some kind? That's my question.
I also have a question, and I don't mean for this to be.
Okay, hold on.
So can we answer?
Yeah, can we address, I looked.
I know,
Sorry.
I do, I mean,
You're fine.
I don't know if we need 2 dispatchers. I didn't say we need to have 2 dispatchers. I'm just asking if we do, if that is the solution, are they able to do that? Are they willing to do that? That's all I'm asking. That's all I was asking, trying to get to. I don't think it's a matter of money. I think it's a matter of service because, at the end of the day, this is, and even in the last meeting, I think we came to the same consensus that it's about making sure that we have the best available service to our citizens, correct? I mean, I don't think whatever you're going to pay is what you're going to pay, but you need to make sure that you get the best available service for your needs. That's the way I view it. It's about what is the best for our citizens in the community. And if you've got to pay a little bit more to get that, then that's what you're going to do. I believe, right? I mean, that's, I think, the best decision to make is, so I don't necessarily think you're just like, oh, well, we're gonna, save a $1 here, so let's do this, right? If you're not getting, the best potential service, best possible service. But that would be my answer to your question. I don't think that, I wasn't trying to say that she needs to hire another individual. I was just asking, would they be able to, or would they consider it if that is what we need to solve the problem, right? So it's coming up with a solution.
Corey, wouldn't going and looking at what you were going to hire first be prudent to what decisions you're gonna have to make? I mean,
I don't necessarily believe that looking at a facility is necessarily
I believe
solving
seeing the function of the facility.
Well,
I mean,
I don't mean just walking through when no one's there. I mean, watching the function. It's like hiring an employee without knowing what the employee can do. Doesn't always work out very well.
well, before you hire an employee, you don't go watch him work at his other job, right?
Right.
So, you're going by the resume. So I don't think that's necessarily a good comparison, but I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Going through and looking. I just don't necessarily think a walk through the facility is this, maybe watching him in action, right? During the course of the day.
That's
to
what
see
I'm
their
saying.
goals.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So you could have one person go and come back and forth or anything like that. But I think you need to see the difference between what the two do. 911, they don't even handle fire over there, do you?
no,
You
sir.
just handle police. And
911 is a service that we as taxpayers in Athens County receive as taxpayers. Tonight, we're discussing a dispatch service.
Correct.
Right.
Dispatch service is not 911. And this was the issue in prior years. Because people would call 911 because we did not have dispatch services in Nelsonville. And the answering machine was not sufficient in most people's eyes. So Hocking became the dispatch service. We still have 911. We receive 911 calls through us to facilitate, people getting out. But 911 will still exist to all of the citizens of Nelsonville, regardless of the decision made here by this committee and this council. We will all have 911. The federal government supports that, our local government supports that, 911 exists. We are talking tonight about a dispatch service. And dispatch is very important in being able to answer citizens' questions when they call in and having somebody there to answer them day and night, I think is important. It's part of what we are able to bring to the table that the 911 dispatch will not bring to the table. Let's be really clear about that. They're not going to tell them when the pool's open. They're not going to tell them a lot of things. And one of my frustrations with it is, what is an emergency to 911 and what is an emergency to me as a citizen might not be the same thing. And in that case, who's going to answer my call at midnight on Sunday night or Saturday night when I have a concern about something? There's not somebody to answer my call if 911 won't do it. And we don't have the services that we have that Hocking provides now.
Thank you for making the distinction there, but I think we are looking at apples to apples in terms of the policing side of it is still dispatchable calls is what we're looking for. And so we're, 911, as she states, is going to maintain still 911 and they're going to patch out emergency EMS, fire, calls out. What we're looking for is dispatchable calls coming into for Nelson.
I think my reference to that was the amount of people on staff at any certain period of time, I believe was the question I was kind of.
I want to make sure we're adequately staffed for,
Right.
for, our needs. That's all I really care about at the end of the day.
busyness
right?
of it.
So in the last 10 months, according to BARCAS, 2,142 calls for total service. You divide that down by 10 months and divide it by 30, get your daily call log of 7.14 calls per day. I would say one dispatcher is.
Thanks, Stephanie.
And just about that. Quick math.
Does this call volume include like administrative calls to the college as well, or just the police dispatcher calls?
It's actual dispatch calls.
I will say this, if I may, 911, and I can say this because I was a 911 operator in Texas. They say a person calls, a citizen here in Nelsonville, they call 911, they're freaking out, something happened. There's a bat in the house. They have a bat phobia, which causes, if you know, some medical issues. They call 911 and say, there's a bat in the house, I'm freaking out, can you please send an officer to come help me wrangle it, get it out of the house? 911 is not going to dispatch for that. They'll say, well, ma'am, you will need to call them directly, which they can if there's just an answering machine, which is what they are stepping in filling while the 911 operators don't dispatch certain calls. They can call. So they say, okay, I'm so sorry, let me call. So they call Nelsonville and they get them. And they will understand that, okay, it's bats in the area, I'm sure they're in the house and this person is probably gonna have a panic attack, which will then require Harry to come out and help the person calm down or whatever. And they can take care of it.
I can give you a great example. You'll love this. This is only in southern Ohio that you can get this story. These people had a snake that was living in their outbuilding, black snake. And the black snake got tangled up in some kind of a net. And it was stuck and it couldn't get out. And so we get a call about the snake. Well, because Hocking is Hocking, okay, we didn't have to send a police officer. We didn't have to dispatch somebody from the city, safety service, or anybody else. We sent somebody from our own NR department who teaches snakes to go out and to collect the snake and to bring it back. We had somebody who ran over a turtle this spring who called in because they broke the turtle shell and they wanted to rescue the turtle with the mower. And we got the turtle from the NR department and went out and we pieced the turtle shell back together and the turtle is in recovery. So, when I say about this community and the way that Hocking College is able to interact on these kinds of calls is so much different than, when we talk about dispatch, this is the kind of thing sometimes we're talking about. And it's not even that the police had to be dispatched, but we were able to dispatch other people from the college who could help the citizens in these particular cases.
I don't think that that's going to make a difference because you have, I'm a retired officer from Columbus. You have military men here. That type of person just thinks one way.
Well, I hope we have a great opportunity to move forward. I don't have anything else. I'll be glad to
I wanna
answer any
ask
other
this
questions.
question. I want to ask this question. I heard Mrs. Young say that they were not going to turn the lights out on Nelsonville. Repeatedly saying to each of us here how much respect they have for us as a community and what we represent. I heard Nancy mention something in regard to the auditor's office, of which Mr. Clements' reply was that the auditor would have nothing to do with it. Whose responsibility was it to know that on March 31st, the contract that we currently are operating through Hocking College with, whose responsibility was it to know that that was expiring and that we needed to address this?
I would say the city manager.
City manager.
Not the auditor. Contracts are only held in the auditor's office.
We don't have a city manager. so
At that
whose
time, you had a
responsibility?
female city manager.
It doesn't matter who it is. I'm just saying
But you're saying the city manager.
city manager would be in charge of that day-to-day.
where he's interested
Then Corey, since we didn't have one, who becomes that fiscal person to be able to address what's happened here?
Well-
Are we gonna take care of the contract now? I mean, it seems rather crappy that they've been since March 31st, operating without. What if we had a real emergency and something that happened? Would our insurance have even covered it? I mean, I'm asking this as a concerned citizen.
Yes.
I've painted your fountain on the square. I've swept it. I cleaned the daylilies out at the swimming pool and I care about Nelsonville. And I'm worried about what's happening here.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly, ma'am.
Yeah, I think, I understand your concern, and in some instances, like if contracts that I deal with, some of them, they could, even if they're not renewed, they'll continue on the same terms, they continue, we still should be paying, for their service if they're providing it, right? So if it's continued on until we do a new contract, it would be between, in my opinion, while it is the city manager's responsibility as far as the city is concerned to address the issue on our side, but I'm sure the city would be also open if Hocking said, hey, we have a contract, that needs to be renewed. We need to have a meeting to discuss it. But there has been, since March, there has been quite a bit of turnover in terms of even city manager, but it's ultimately for the city and it's the responsibility of the city manager. So regardless of what city manager was in place before, during, and after that, it would be that individual. And in this instance, it's interim city manager, Chief Tolliver, he would be the one ultimately responsible for making that happen for the city.
Correct. Which didn't happen.
It still hasn't happened, I agree. But
No one is trying to
yeah.
say that they're not owed money and we shouldn't be paying or come up with a solution to move forward and to make sure that the time where there was a lapse in contract isn't taken care of. At the time when I was given the contract, I made Tracy, I believe Tracy was the city manager at the time, aware of it. And it was sent off to our legal counsel for review. And that's where that started at.
So no one followed up on that? Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking you that. Nobody followed, the importance of what takes place over here. It's maybe more important to me than it is to any one of you. But I'm only one citizen who feels that way, and I'm not saying that.
I wasn't on council at the time in March, but, you know, I understand what you say. As a citizen, it concerns me as well.
Right,
So,
we've got to get our act together. We
So-
owe that to each other and to the forefathers who worked diligently, and to the people who gave land and did everything to build Hocking College to begin with. We all have to talk positive to one another and our neighbors and say, we have to do better. This isn't acceptable.
Absolutely. Tearing each other apart serves no purpose whatsoever.
Thank you for letting
That's
us
right.
comment.
Absolutely.
I do have a couple of questions. The current contract expired June 30th. Is that correct?
I think the actual contract was March 31st, but we've been paid on a fiscal year on a regular basis.
It looked
But
like,
I might have the original contract here.
I have it too. It's signed 6/30 of 20, and it was a 2-year contract.
I don't know, I didn't really come prepared to talk about the old contract.
Over years.
Well
Oh,
over
that's
years.
nice.
That's mutual aid. No, I don't have the old contract with me, so
Well,
I can't answer.
That's what I have in front of me. So my question is, on the renewal contract, is it for 2 years?
I think it was only 3 years,
For a year?
for sure. Scott brought it to our attention.
You mean the proposal I provided tonight?
No, wasn't it?
Excuse me,
You said
I'm
it
gonna
was
give
a
it to you back
2-year
now.
contract signed on 6/20. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the original was signed on 6/30 of 20,
Of 20, and it was 2 years.
2 years.
And
This
So
is the
this
new one.
proposed contract, the renewal, is it for 1 or 2 years?
I think it was, they were in last year's contract.
was it 1 year? Which probably would have gone until the end of June 12th.
Of 24.
23.
Okay, well, I guess my ultimate question where I'm going is, would Hocking College consider a 1-year contract?
That's what we've been doing, I think.
I mean, the original said 2.
As long as I don't have to sit here and do this.
No, I have a reason for asking. And I'll get to that when we come to the end of our discussion here. Why I'm asking about the contract.
Yeah, do I understand that this proposal is a 3-year
I
contract?
think the new proposal we're providing tonight is a 3-year.
Okay, that's my question. Okay, so
And
3 years.
June 30th of 2026.
So 3 years. Okay. So then the question would be, would Hocking College consider a 1-year extension on the contract? And the reason I ask that is
What's the
we seem to have some issues. If it's a possibility that those could be worked out and revisited in a year from now. If that makes sense.
My only concern with it being that there would be an actual earnest attempt to actually try to do that.
Okay.
With a longer term commitment, where we know we have to live with each other for a while, we tend to be more willing to get it done.
Okay.
That would be my only concern,
Okay.
sir.
I'll save my further comment for when we come to our decision here at the end. And with that, is there any other comments?
My question is, what is the tenure of your dispatchers?
Oh, gosh, it could be anywhere from a few months to a few years. I mean, turnover is fairly high.
Okay, turnover is high, but then right now, as you said, you do not have a full-time dispatcher at this time.
No, I do. I have to wait to put them.
But you
I'm
do,
doing the paperwork.
do you have a full-time dispatcher
Yes.
at the facility
Yes.
this time?
Yes.
Okay, and that dispatcher is conducting training how often?
So we just got on with AMCO also, and they're going through, they will be taking the class coming up, next month. So whenever something new comes out, I try to have them do training. If I feel that as these complaints came through, and whatever was a problem, they all go back through training. Or specifically the person that I hear on the recording, if they're still there, that person goes through more training.
Excellent.
But
So I can't say that, it's on an as-need basis.
okay, so there's
It's on
no, you have no continuing training in
Yes,
progress.
continuing training with APCO will be starting. However, if a person has some deficiencies, I would say, or a complaint, they will get as needed training on what their deficiency or their weakness is.
Okay. But you only, as per what ADCO says, you have no other training program in progress or anything as far as internal house?
Well, we have a training manual, and then each dispatcher goes through the training manual. It's a checklist. And if they have, again, it's on an as-need basis, because sometimes if you don't use it, you lose it, and you get rusty. So if I have to go back and they have to retrain them, we will retrain them on what their weaknesses is at the time. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So if it's something, a monthly training, no. But if it's something that someone needs some more training with, that they have a deficiency, they will get the adequate training over again.
And all new dispatchers are trained.
Yes.
Well, as I say, I hear a lot and I respect what Hocking College does for the community out through here. But the biggest thing I've heard about tonight in this meeting is not what our dispatch service, your dispatch service can do for us, but how well you do with everything else in the community. We're here to discuss the importance of dispatch. Do you have direct contact with the ambulance services and the fire department?
Yes.
That's just through 911, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so that means your dispatcher has to call 911 to get 911 to dispatch EMS or the fire department.
So as the 911, as Teresa has stated, is a push of the button to call them.
You are correct.
911 calls us.
Yeah, no,
And we call
Oh, yes.
911.
yes,
It goes both
Yes.
ways depending on where the original call comes in.
yes.
As a citizen, I learned to call 911 for a true emergency,
Right.
not for somebody who was, like I said before.
If Sergeant Deerdorf needs to talk directly to Chief Barber, unless he changes the channel directly, he cannot speak directly to him. If he contacts Central, or he tells his dispatch to contact Central, they can do a patch transfer that way, if he was on the same frequency. At 911, that's what they do, they do that patch system.
Don't do it.
I'm gonna start later.
So that's how 911 would work, that is, they would do that patch system, and that's what that push of that button is.
Is there a state compliance requirement for continuing education for dispatchers?
I don't believe there is. Is there?
For APCO,
Do
there's
APCO.
24 hours per year,
Mm-hmm.
that they complete their public safety telecommunications.
And that's what excuse me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's also additional classes that they can do for APCO for law enforcement dispatch, active shooter dispatch,
Yes.
and they host pretty much all of the national standards as well.
And Chief, do you have any idea if 911 for the county has the same requirement? And is your training program comparable to theirs?
So actually, Deerdorf told me about APCO when he was over in my department, and we got registered for APCO. And then we just found I just got in contact with them several months ago, and that's how I got my full-time dispatcher scheduled for training. So I believe that they are the same, we're doing the same thing.
When I designed the Hocking College dispatcher training program, it was based off of 911 and all of the APCO standards.
I got a question
Yes.
to Officer Sergeant Theodore. You designed it or Officer Eubank did? I wasn't for sure. Or did you amend it and read it?
She designed the field training officer program,
Mm-hmm.
and then I designed the dispatcher
Okay.
So, now, if somebody calls 911 needing officer's assistance, they call 911, 911 contacts Nelson or the Hocking College. Do you have contact with that caller that's on the line calling 911? Or does that caller have to hang up and recall you?
So 911 normally can transfer us the call.
The call can be
Yes.
transferred, okay?
Yes.
Question I have.
So two ways with that. They could transfer the caller in, but if the caller hangs up, dispatch tells us the information and we relay it to the officer.
Do you have a way of contacting that caller back?
We have caller ID on our phone and normally the number comes up on the phone. So the answer to your question is yes.
That's just my concern, because that person on the other line is important if they're talking to 911 and all of a sudden the police are dispatched.
Yes.
But then at the same time, if an ambulance is discovered that they need it in time, now the dispatcher has to push it in and go back to 911. And it seems like a lot of time is being lost in between them. Seconds count in emergency.
Correct, they do.
So I'm just.
But they would be calling 911 anyway, right? If it was an emergency.
Right. Well, you'd be calling 911, but then all of a sudden you go through and now we're dispatched from 911 over to Hocking College. And in the process of that call, you find out that you need the EMS services or the fire department service at the same time.
Okay, so
Then it wasn't originally put in.
let me ask this question to Sergeant Theodore real quick. Theodore, when 911 calls an emergency and they transfer the 911 call to Hocking College and they already have the information, at that time is a squad already sent out and we're just relaying you the information?
Depends on what the initial chief complaint of the call is.
Exactly.
If it comes in as a law enforcement call, law enforcement, they'll get the information for a law enforcement call and it's relayed through. And then in the route, if there is a fire EMS emergency, like the animal in the house complaint, we're reading it brought up about, needing EMS in the process once they get there. At that point, we'd have to ask our dispatcher to contact 911 to have EMS respond.
So if, again, back to my mom, if she's having a heart attack and I call in and say my mother's having a heart attack, EMS is going to be dispatched from 911. Then Hocking will be called so an officer can respond to see if there's a bigger issue or something else that's needed with the police.
Okay. But let's say all of a sudden you've got a prowler out here, you dispatched an officer to go to the scene. So now at the time an ambulance is not being called, but in between that time talking to the officers, shots are fired, an individual is hurt. What has to happen? Don't have immediate contact. It's the only thing I'm saying.
I think we can what if this thing to death.
Yes.
We should probably do that. Mr. Chairman, I would like to.
I have one final thing if possible.
Okay.
As a wife of a police officer, as speaking from working with Chief Thames as well as Chief Oliver, from my standpoint, from listening to the scanner, from being on firefighter for 25 years, from sitting behind a dispatch desk, I've been on both sides of this board. The only thing I ask is that you as counsel look at both sides. Please take these into consideration. Go back and listen to the tapes and see for yourself how this all works out. Listen to the complaints of what's going on within the tapes and make a decision. You can see what's happening. You can understand from the officer's perspective what's happening. And I request that Chief Thames and Chief Tolliver work together
Yes.
to resolve these issues with no disrespect or anything towards one another. We all have to work as a team. I also request that council steps in and looks at these issues to make the executive decision as well.
Anybody else?
My only thought would be, if there's a history of not working together, not in the past, but recent, would it be advisable to have, not a moderator, but someone along those lines to make sure that during this 1 year, say they accept the 1 year contract, okay? With the caveat that, they're gonna fix whatever the issues are. They can't be fixed unless they work together. So in order to ensure that that is gonna happen, would it not be advisable to have someone else mediate to make sure that it's gonna get done in that 1 year?
Maybe a
Because
staff
it hasn't
meeting,
been done in the last 2 years.
a quarterly staff meeting maybe?
Something along those lines. I mean, something to show the progress, to show that, hey, we did take care of whatever the issue was for this 1 day, whatever the opposite happened, whatever. Here is what we're gonna do from this point forward. And everyone has to be on board.
Let's
If
be
this
clear
is
too
what's
here, there
decided.
has not been a complaints brought forward. My name's on that contract. I have never had anybody bring a complaint to me, ever, in the 2+ years. And we've handled a lot of calls. Matter of fact, I get the opposite. People in the community coming continually to tell me it's one of the best things we ever did. If Chief Timms has a complaint, she addresses it. We have the documentation to show where she's answered emails or, to sit down with somebody and then done a follow-up email to say, this is what we agreed to. So we've always addressed everything.
That's excellent.
I don't think we have an ongoing issue until a recent issue that we're now being asked to address, and we'll be happy to address it. We'll be happy to go over those calls, which are all recorded, and address it. But this is the first time we're being asked to address something that has not been addressed prior.
I agree. And I will say, I think it was very disrespectful to bring this packet and present it to them now, without giving them an opportunity to work through those issues, which should have been done. If the issue really is we want to get these things taken care of, that packet should have been brought to the chief of police here. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name.
Inskeep.
Ansky? Okay, should have been brought to her in a timely fashion, not produced just before this meeting. That was, to me personally, a very disrespectful and unprofessional move to do as representatives of the city of Nelsonville. Because as representatives, you represent each and every citizen that lives within Nelsonville. So I have to say.
Well, thank you. We don't get our feelings hurt very easy. We just want to get the work done.
Just for clarity's sake, the last meeting with 911 was the first time I saw those complaints. Aware.
But don't you believe there's something that's been taken out of this whole thing tonight that I've said it for years and I don't quite get it. We brought Hocking College, into Nelsonville and, to a part of the town and so on. But as you see right now, we don't even work together. We're 5 minutes away from each other. We're all fighting for the same thing. We're trying to get grants. We're trying to make the city better. We're trying to do this. We don't even communicate. I'm not putting anybody down. You haven't been down in the facility. You haven't been through that facility. Nobody sits down, and it's gone on for years, not just right here. This has nothing to do with what's going on right now. But for years, we've never put our hands out and come halfway across the table. We treat each other like we're individuals around here. And with one, you don't have the other. John White said many years ago, if the city's not healthy, his college is not healthy. If a college isn't healthy, your city's not healthy. Why don't we work together? Why would you bring something in here 5 minutes before we have this meeting, and you can't go down and just talk to her and say, look, here's some problems that we have. I think there's a big lesson to be learned tonight.
Yes.
And that is, we're a small town. We need everything we need, everything. Because we barely made it to be a city, quite frankly, barely made it. You don't see any new businesses coming in here. You don't see any new people coming wanting to break down the doors. And we talked about, Hocking Hills and the development that goes on there and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that we really could be looking after, but we continue. I mean, we're so small. Without the train, we're in bad shape. Without Rocky, you're in bad shape. Without the college, you're in bad shape. Man alive, guys. You gotta work together. If you don't, you're not gonna make it. Nobody's gonna make it. And there's people gonna eat our lunch. And that's called Athens, and that's called Logan. And we're gonna get the leftovers. I don't like because we're gonna move it out of, thinking about moving down to Nelsonville. Hell, it's jobs. It's real jobs. And it's income. And you're getting the income from your city income tax for the people working down there. And so we need to think about working together, or we're gonna go down the tubes together. That's my thought.
True. Yes. Well, on a happy note, the LS building is going to open here within a couple of months. The old LS building is beautiful, completely redone. Very expensive project, but we're excited about it, and I hope you all will come to the ribbon cutting. So that's my invitation.
Any other comments?
Thank you for taking the time to sit down and listen to everything.
So, I'll go ahead and say, last week, we had the proposal from 911. I had a few days to look at it. Tonight, we just received the proposal from Hocking College. So I'm really not prepared to make a decision.
Make our mind. No, we need more time to look at this.
So I guess at this point, we could say, we could have another committee meeting, or we could just move.
We need to have another committee meeting, we need to decide. Are we going to counter propose a 1-year contract or accept a 3-year contract as is?
But should that be full council or committee?
Well, no decision can be made in committee. It has to be the council. But as a committee, we need to come up with what we are going to recommend to the council, and then the council can decide.
So we need to set another committee meeting.
Well, yeah, because we need to process the information from both sides, figure out what a solution is going to be, and then make that recommendation to the council. So that probably will require another meeting. And then we need to determine internally within this committee who needs to recuse themselves from the decision-making process.
Correct.
So, I don't have anything else unless you do.
If that's it, then we will adjourn the meeting at 7:55. Thank you, everyone.